Hello and welcome to the Cultivating Calmness Podcast. I have a question. Do you ever say, I'll get to it later. I'll see them later. I'll talk to them later. I'll be over there later. I'll get to that eventually. And then maybe that hasn't happened. Well, I think over the last several weeks, as a society, as a world, we have maybe learned that in a big way with, the death of Charlie Kirk and numerous other people who have died. But, Charlie Kirk has been the big one in the news. And, he was suddenly and tragically lost his life. And that got me thinking about how we are connecting with our loved ones. Now, that isn't the only reason. Actually, what got me thinking about wanting to talk about this was just having my own personal family members and having that thought that, I'll get to that later. I can always talk to them later about that thing. But, right now I have a grandpa who's 92 and a grandma who is 87. And, they're not getting any younger and their health isn't getting any better. And I often catch myself saying, I'll see them next weekend. But they're at a point in their lives where there may not be another weekend. And several weeks ago, I actually thought that was the case. I actually thought that my grandpa was probably maybe not going to make it to the end of the weekend. Luckily, he got better and he's still here with us. But, I know that is probably not going to be much longer. And of course, that makes me incredibly sad. And there are lots of things that I've learned about my grandpa over the years and that, my siblings have learned about him and, his kids and other grandkids have learned about him and my grandma. And, but there are just some things that, in talking in conversations with people and they asked me, well, do you know this? And, well, do you know that? And well, what about this? And my personal answer was, I don't know. I'm sure my brother knows that, or I'm sure my aunt knows that. But I didn't know. And so, some of these questions were specifically to his military experience. And, so I made a point to, when I went over to visit, to ask him those questions, to get those answers for myself so that I had them. And that is something that I've been trying to do over the years with people that I love, is to just ask them questions, to hear their story, to know, where it is they came from. And one of the reasons I've always done that is because, my mom died when I was so young. And so there are many questions that I have for her that I can't ask her. So I have to ask other people. And, I don't know if their answers are the real true answers or not. And, that may be something to think about. So if you are somebody who has, maybe lost somebody close to you, whether you were young or old, in trying to maybe prevent that from happening for your kids. So there are tons of resources out there online. You can pay a company where you record your story and then they type it all up in a nice little book. And, you have that book of your stories. There are books of questions that you ask your family members. Either, I sit and I ask them and I write their answer, or I present them with the book and I say, here, this is a gift for you, but it's a gift for us for later so that we have your story, so that there are things that we know about you. And if we have questions, you maybe have already answered them. So for somebody who maybe, well, even if you haven't lost somebody, like that's something that I can do. And I've done some of those, but honestly, I could put in a little more effort to do that for my kids and my family so that I am preserving memories that I have that I haven't shared with them, that they may never ask me, but they could also ask me, and I will have them written down so that they can have them for themselves later, or audio recorded. We all, or many of us, have these nifty things called iPhones or other phones, and you can voice record. So I often will do that when talking to my grandparents, for example, when they're telling stories. I just record that. Just so that I have that story, I have their voice. If I want to listen to it, it's there. Not something that most people were able to do, especially 30 years ago when my mom died. I have very few recordings of her voice, and those are on old video recordings. So, it's just a little different. So in kind of being around family and seeing them over the years, especially our older family members, I think it's important for us to recognize that they aren't always going to be here. And there are things that you can do to preserve those memories if you want to. And some of those things is as simple as sitting down and having a conversation with them, showing up and watching an old movie and having them talk about what they like about those movies. My grandma likes the John Wayne movies. She will watch her old movies. I'll walk in and they're watching the black and white cowboy movies, and my grandpa is in the other room watching his football. And sometimes they're watching the shows together, and it's just a nice memory for you to have. But do this with everybody. Do this with your children. Do this with your aunts, your uncles, your friends, because unfortunately, we don't know when it's going to be our time to go, when God is going to call us home. And we don't want to be living in a place where we say, I wish I had asked. I wish I had done. I wish I had said with our family. And, I am equally as guilty of doing that. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today. I have family members that are having a difficult time with their memory, and it's sad to witness that. And so it makes it extra important to be able to retain some of those memories, not only for myself and my family, but for them as well. Because they may not be the same person in a year that they are today. And we don't want to look back and say, I wish I'd recorded some of that. I wish I had done something about that when I had the chance. And so now's your chance. Now's your chance to think about preserving those memories, those experiences that you have with your loved ones while you can, and not, taking them for granted. So I know it's easy to do. We live busy, busy lives. There's always something to be doing, always someplace to be going. And it's okay to just say, some of that stuff isn't so important. So I know I've been taking advantage of that when I have had downtimes at work, where I can go and visit my grandparents or other family members. I will do that. And, yes, I could be getting work done. There's probably more that I could be doing for work, but I'm not going to get that time back with my family. And that could be something that I can work on, is to be able to do that, even at home, like putting the phone down, watching all the stories and seeing all the things that are going on in the world, bringing that attention to what's going on in our world, what's going on in our family and in our home. And taking some time and setting that aside. So, big events tend to bring these things to the forefront, and we don't want to forget that. And we don't want to forget the people that we love and the things that they have brought to our lives, and the things that we can share and pass on to other people in our lives that will also care about them and do care about them, and preserving their memory. So that's kind of what I had for today. There are many, like I said, apps and companies and books and things out there where you can preserve memories of your loved ones. So if that's something that interests you, would help you with this, I encourage you to go purchase one of those or make one yourself, and get those things in writing, get them down so that you have those things stored. You have their important memories that you can continue to hold on to and cherish and share. So thank you all for joining me today. I hope you had a wonderful week, and I will see you again next week for the Cultivating Calmness podcast.